And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Dawg Talk podcast over here on the UGASports YouTube channel. I'm Harrison Reno, alongside me co-host Dan Kiley. Portal's coming to an end. It's felt like the portal's been open for a month, except it's only been open for like a week, like 2 weeks. It's going to be open in total for 14 days. This is the last like 24-hour span that the portal's going to be open until this time next January. First time in a while that we're going to experience just a one portal off season. It might be quite nice, may not, depending on how you feel about how the portal's gone for Georgia or your team. If you're tuning in to us tonight and you're not a fan of Georgia, we appreciate you being here nonetheless as we sit here to talk the Dogs for an hour tonight. A lot to talk about, Dan. But first, before we get into hot topics, I see we're already drawing a question. What disaster do we avoid? Nate Frazier. If you haven't been paying attention to the dog vent, there were some serious portal rumors around that guy. But I don't want to get ahead of schedule. We will wait to talk about that. We got hot topics tonight. And if you're new to us, I will explain that here in just a quick moment. But first, before we do that, I do want to wish a congratulations to our good friend and co-host, Koby Pyrz. My man's a dad, had a baby, I believe, on, was it Saturday or Sunday this weekend?
It was this weekend.
It was this weekend. Congratulations to he and the wife. Have a newborn. He is not with us this week. Maybe we'll get him back next week. We'll see. I'm not, in no means, if he's not here for a couple of weeks, we both understand. We love having him on this show. He's become a good friend of ours. Really heartfelt congratulations to them as they experience being new parents, as I'm sure some of y'all can relate. It's a stressful change in life, but it's also a sweet one. And they're going through that this week. I know that feels good. Maybe he's tuning in. Maybe he's not. Maybe they need quiet time, and I can't blame them for that. But without further ado, if you're new here, usually the plan is Wednesdays at 7:30, the Top podcast. We're talking all things Georgia, specifically Georgia football, live here on the UGASports YouTube channel going forward on Wednesdays. We debuted last week. Been running this show for, 3-4 years now. I forget exactly how long. It's been a little bit, but we are now over here at UGASports. That's Dan Kiley. I'm Harrison Reno. We appreciate you for being here. Hot topics, typically, unless it's a game reaction show, we try and just have a couple fun questions, whether it's college football related in general, or sometimes it's not. Just fun topics, fun questions, easy hitters to get our night started. On the slate today, we will hit hot topics. Then we will go to a clip courtesy of our, I don't want to say friend, but he can be if he wants to be a friend. Friend of the show, Joel Klatt, had a nice quote about the debate regarding Kirby Smart and whether or not he's still the best coach in college football. Then we will talk the NCAA transfer portal, everyone's favorite topic. Nate Frazier, Chauncey Bowens gave Georgia a big lift this week in terms of their portal status, or status on their roster, I should say. We will also talk about some of the new entries since we last spoke, and then we will wrap it up from there. If you have any questions, in the meantime, we pride ourselves on being interactive with the chat. Go ahead and get your chats in. We love incorporating y'all into the show. Without further ado, hot topic number one, Dan. Would you rather, if your team's in a bowl game, have it at a fun city or a good weather city? And why?
Yeah,
this answer came to me immediately. So I'm curious where you're at. I have my answer. No. This one came to me immediately, so I'm curious what your answer is.
Oh yeah, it's immediate for me. It's good weather. I mean, listen, there are a lot of fun towns out there, but crappy weather, you just can't enjoy them at all. So I'm all about that good weather. I love the beaches. I love the warm weather. It doesn't need to be 100 degrees, but you're talking about like a good 75, 80 degrees with a nice little breeze, have an opportunity to do a lot of different things. And then just not to just completely railroad the question, but most of your good weather towns are pretty fun too. But Wisconsin, not Illinois, Indiana. I know a lot of the games get held up there in Indiana and stuff like that. But I'm not trying to have a bowl game, in January up there. I want to be in Miami. I want to be in Hawaii. I want to be in Arizona or somewhere in Texas, someplace with good weather. I'm definitely a good weather guy. What about you, Harrison?
So you went opposite of me. So and here's why. Maybe this is the cop-out answer. Maybe you're going to hate this answer. I went for the fun city, but because I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like a lot of the times the fun cities overlap with the good weather cities. Like, off the top of my head, Orlando, Cali, Vegas, like a lot of fun cities. Like Atlanta, obviously in January wouldn't be considered a good weather city because it can get cold, but there are some overlaps. So generally, I would say fun city, especially if I'm going somewhere. I would say fun city. A lot of questions in the chat about that.
You
Guys,
know what? It's like a tease. You'll just have to stick around to find out, or just
yeah.
read the comments.
Next one. Would you rather receive memorabilia or swag as a gift for your favorite team? Now, I guess we should quantify memorabilia. I don't know. Help me out here, Dan. Maybe like the flag in the background, a signed football, swag. Obviously, stuff you can wear is how we're classifying it in this.
Yes. So I'll let you go first because I mean, go ahead, go first. What do you want? You want your swag or do you want memorabilia from your favorite team?
I say swag always. Being able to have something to wear, something to rep, it's always cool. But long running joke in this show, I need memorabilia for behind me in my background. So maybe I'll take that right now, especially when I get my own play stand. Like I gotta have stuff on the wall. You're kicking butt with the stuff you have in your own wall. You have your own room dedicated to this show. I need to get one of those. But yeah, I think right now swag because I live in obviously in an apartment, so I don't have much room. But definitely when I get my own space, memorabilia.
So listen, for me, I've never been a huge memorabilia guy. I do have a couple pieces up right there. Is my Matt Ryan Rookie of the Year signed football that my wife got for me for Christmas one year. Outside of that, I don't really like autographed things. I'm not a big memorabilia guy, but I am a massive swag guy. If you want to get to my heart, give me swag, like gear. If I got team issue Georgia stuff that you can't buy, I would be over the moon excited. The black jacket that Kirby wears, the windbreaker that I've showed you guys a million times that I cannot find anywhere. I want that damn jacket so bad. And I probably would pay stupid money for it. And my wife would murder me, absolutely murder me. But I have so much Georgia gear. You know, you've been to my house. You've seen like the clothes that I have. I could wear a different Georgia shirt on every single show and probably not run out for a while. I am such a swag guy. My son makes fun of me so much as like whenever he is on a new team or something like that, I buy all the new stuff. And he's just like, bro, you're so pathetic. And then like for like the high school that he plays at, I have probably 10 or 15 Nike things for every sport that he plays. So I am a gear head. So yeah, give me the gear.
You can't go wrong with a nice piece of swag. Now, look, memorabilia you can't go wrong with either. Like there's some pieces of memorabilia that if you get, it's valuable. Something you'll always kind of remember and hold on to. But yeah, I'm kind of like you. I think swag's always nice. All right, that's hot topics for today. Next hot topic, kind of a hot topic, yes. Joe Klatt had some interesting comments. He went on, I guess, the next round, a daily, I believe, radio type YouTube podcast that is on pretty much, I believe, daily at this point. I know they do a lot of coverage in Alabama, but I think generally they follow all of the SEC. This clip comes courtesy of them. I'm going to let it play in full, and then we will talk about it. He had some interesting quote. They had an interesting quote when asked about Kirby Smart's status among the best coaches in college football.
If they win on Monday night, and they
just for I guess to let everyone know, they are talking about Kirk Cignetti in Indiana.
At that point would have 27 wins over the last couple of years. In the here and now, no disrespect to Kirby Smart, but could you make the argument Kirk Cignetti is the best active coach in college football?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can make the argument. Some would disagree, but there's no doubt. By the way, Kirby hasn't even been in the Final Four in the last 3 years. You know, I mean, so like that's 3 years is a long time. That's basically a whole cycle. almost a whole cycle of college players. We are approaching very quickly a roster full of kids at Georgia who have never even played in the Final Four. So yes, absolutely, you can say that. And I know that, yeah, I did a whole thing on my show about just like narratives and I know you guys might disagree, but I firmly believe in the last 3 years, and certainly this postseason and the last 2 postseasons, this narrative that the SEC is somehow vastly superior than the rest of college football, that's dead. I mean, as dead as it can possibly be. This idea of the gauntlet of the SEC, dead. At least it should be. Some might hold on to it. I believe that they would hold on to it falsely.
Dan, he goes on a rant about obviously the narrative around the SEC. So I don't think we need to go all the way there, but we got his thoughts on Kirby Smart. I mean, just initial reactions to that.
So you have a guy who wins back-to-back national championships, which hasn't been done in the playoff era. Obviously, it's not very long, but still. You have a guy who goes completely undefeated, loses one game by less than a touchdown to Alabama in the SEC championship game, and gets left out. And then you have a guy who wins another SEC championship and then loses to a team that they've already beaten. And that guy's not a good coach anymore. So I just want to make sure I have that the line right. Losing to Notre Dame, I give Georgia a complete pass because you lose your quarterback right before that game, and you have a guy starting that's never started a game before, and you have, I think pretty much everybody agrees the skill players weren't as good as they probably should have been offensively. You lose that many guys to the draft, but yet you still continue to show up in these games. You don't have unlimited pockets for NIL. You're not buying a $30 million roster. Your average age isn't 24 years old, but yet you're still in the games. To say that Kirby is not the best coach in the game right now is crazy. Does he make bad decisions? Sure. Are there things that I wish that we did better? Absolutely. Would I take another coach in America over Kirby Smart right now to coach my team? Absolutely not. And, Kirk Cignetti's done a great job, and I am not throwing darts at him and saying that he is a terrible football coach because that would be asinine to say that. He's a very good football coach. And I will even go a step further and say a lot of the talented guys he brought into the portal came from JMU. So it's not like he went and got all of the best players from other rosters. He brought a lot of his own guys with him. So he developed some guys, and then now he's benefiting from that. So I'm not going to take anything away and say he's not a really, really good coach. And he probably will win the national championship this year. He's done a great job. But to say he's now the best coach in America, man, that's kind of a stretch to me. I understand that, like I said, he's good, but that's a hell of a stretch to make. And I'm not reading the comments because I'm trying to say what I'm trying to say, and it's going to mess me up. But I think Kirk Cignetti's done a fantastic job. I had no idea who he was until he got to Indiana, and then he did the Google me, and I did, because I didn't know who he was before that. So, and maybe these other people didn't know who Kirby Smart was. And then the whole thing about the SEC not being dominant is laughable, and I'm not going to even address that because that's complete horse shit. Harrison, what do you got to say?
Just real quick. I think you've got to agree with most of these. I'm curious, is because we have, I'd assume 99% at minimum Georgia fans here. Do y'all watch Fox and non-ESPN analysts now? And I'm curious there. Do you only watch ESPN now? Is it kind of like politics where you only watch the network that your conference is with? I'm curious how, because obviously I don't see much of Fox anymore. I still see Joel Klatt because now he does his own show. I'm curious because I think Objective Sports Fan has a good point. Klatt works for Fox. His job is hype up the Big Ten and Big Noon. I agree. Same thing with ESPN and, having to hype up the SEC. I think it works both ways. I'm curious to see. He also goes on to the league has been down, but it's still the most physical and deepest conference as well. It's difficult. Devoid of any context. Signetti's done the best single season job. He has a decade of sustained success to go before he gets crowned. And then Chris Garcia, it's almost like what is someone doing right now? Kirby has maintained a program 10 years. Yeah, so I kind of fall in line here, Dan, because we're talking about a new world of the sport in terms of this isn't even the same sport that Kirby Smart won 2 championships back-to-back in just a couple years ago. Like it's so different now. The portal has completely shifted things. Like we are starting to see parity in terms of a deeper list of teams that are much closer together in talent level than we did even back then. Obviously, the additions to the field, the college football playoff has added some difficulties in that. Scheduling has kind of been put into a hamper. We've seen college football conference realignment change the sport. There's so many different elements of the sport, and it's becoming harder and harder to go on these long dominant runs in a season and go on and win the championship. I mean, just last year, I point folks to this. Ryan Day went into the college football playoff as a coach that many thought should be fired because he was, quote, underachieving with his roster. Then the playoffs comes, and boom, at a flip of a switch, that team plays up to expectations. They get hot. They steamroll their way to a national championship game. Indiana has steamrolled their way to the national championship game this year. Played, I would say their schedule has been a 3 or 4 game schedule. They're not in the top 30 in terms of strength of schedule. So to me, they are expected to win in the regular season, given what their rosters turn into. It should have been an expectation. That's not to say I saw this coming. I didn't think Indiana was going to be as good as they were. I frankly have been waiting up to this point to see them turn out to be what they were last year. But to say we are going to strip Kirby Smart, who I'm with Dan, I still think should be considered the best coach in college football because of, like Chris Garcia said, 10 years of sustained success. We've seen one-hit wonders in this sport. We saw Mike Norvell in Florida State have a couple good seasons, one great season, and then 2-10. We saw Mel Tucker at Michigan State put things together for a couple years and then kind of fall by the wayside. So this isn't something new. Yeah, well, and not to mention the scandal there, but nonetheless, no shots fired at Mel Tucker. It's just the way it is. We've seen this before in terms of the transfer portal kind of lead to instant results, an upturn in results, but we haven't seen it sustain success. And that's why I'm not ready to throw the toys out the pram and say Georgia's building the roster the wrong way. So to see what he's done in the regular season, Dan, for me, to get his team to win on a week-to-week basis with a top 10 strength of schedule in back-to-back seasons with 2 of his rosters that are probably considered some of his weakest rosters compared to the 6 years before, that's impressive to me. I value that.
I have something to add on too. Is I know a lot of the people who are watching haven't been following our show, but we had conversations. Was it 2 years ago about the Tennessee program where Josh Heupel did a great job with that one roster. And we said, hey, listen, now you're going to have to replace the talent on your roster and you're going to have to replace some coordinators. Or can you do that twice? Like you did it once. You built the roster up. You had the right people calling the shots and you had a really good season. Can you do it again? And I think that's kind of the era that we're in right now where you can buy your way. And, like I said, I'm going to give him credit because a lot of the guys who are making good plays for them and, making, a lot of the good players in Indiana, he brought with him from JMU. So it's not, yes, there are some other guys, but, he developed some guys. So I'll give him the credit for this roster, and I won't say that he bought this championship. No, look, Ohio State last year had the most expensive roster they had. And, even before the season started, both of us agreed that was the most talented roster we'd ever seen. And, like Texas is trying to buy a roster, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, all these people are trying to buy their way to a championship, and Indiana did it better than anybody else. but can you do it again? The other part of that too is those coaches who are on his coaching staff that are doing such a good job in helping him build this thing up, they're going to get poached out. We've seen that at Georgia. We've seen that in a lot of different places. Nick Saban at Alabama. I think one of the things that Nick Saban doesn't get enough credit for, although he gets credit for everything, but one of the things I think he was really good at was replacing the coordinators. And there was a very short, but there was a period of time where he didn't necessarily get that right. And, they're like, oh, the dynasty's over. Then he finally gets it right, and they go right back to rolling again. Kirby, same deal. He's gone through multiple coordinators on both sides of the ball at this point. Some have been really good. Some have been okay. Some downright bad. I mean, I'm not going to say any. Well, it's Coley. I mean, when he was the offensive coordinator, it just did not work. Chaney did not necessarily work. Monken, home run. Bobo, it remains to be seen. He does a good job. But we haven't won a national title with him, so I can't crown him. Schumann has done a good job, but Lanning did a great job. And then those defensive guys are never going to get the credit because Kirby's in the room. We understand that, but the point is that he's been able to rebuild. He's gone through coordinators. He's gone through talent. What is it? What was it? 24 guys go to the NFL draft in a 2-year span or something like that. Wasn't it that? Or was it
20,
more?
It's around there.
Yeah, it was a lot. Like in the 2-year span, he puts a ton of guys in the first and second round. It was obnoxious almost.
He had 13 NFL or first-round draft picks in 2 years.
What?
I think it was 13 first-round picks in 2 years, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was just an obnoxious amount of people going into the draft. And the reason I'm saying all that is to point out the fact that Kirby's done it year in and year out, where he's rolling it over very much in the same way that Saban did at Alabama. But like you said, the game has completely changed. So you can't stack those 4 and 5 stars on top of each other. You don't have second string linebackers that are next year a first round pick. It doesn't necessarily happen that way. It's those guys are extremely talented. Now with the portal and with the NIL and the way people are throwing money around, is if you're a good player and if you're not extremely happy with everything that you got, they're jumping in the portal and they're gone. So it's very hard to build up to that sustainability. Again, going back to the Kirby stuff with this year and last year, we ultimately didn't get what we wanted. We didn't get the national title. You can even say that this year in particular, performance was an issue, and you can point at the coaches, you can point at the players, you can point at whoever you want to, and it didn't live up to the standard. But to say that he's not still the best coach, it's just, to me, it's just wanting attention. And it's been mentioned by everybody here that, he works for Fox and he's hyping up his guy, and I got it. But it's crazy to me how quickly we are to just want to point to somebody else. Saban got the benefit of the doubt forever and ever, amen. And nobody ever thought to question it. I thought Kirby did a great job on his own 2 feet of coming up and grabbing that mantle. And I don't know, man, if you just go back and you look over the last 5 years of record, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that's had a better stretch than Kirby. 2 national titles. What was it? 3 SEC championships at that time. Because we didn't win it last year, and we didn't win it. The first
two national championships, and then 2 SEC championships in that span, like in the back-to-back years, or up to from 16 to 22 was 2 national championships, 2 SEC championships, and then they won a third. They've won their third and fourth in the last 2 years.
And then I want to highlight one other point that you made too, is that Ryan Day was on the precipice of being fired, losing to Michigan again. And then with that roster, if he did win a national title, I think he would have gotten fired. We don't have any way to say that for certain, but I think he would have. And then Mario,
he got bounced in the first round. I think there's a serious conversation.
But then look at Mario Cristobal down in Miami. He has that boat full of doubters was pretty full. And now that he's in a national championship game, it's like selective amnesia. Everybody's like, oh, he's such a great coach. He's so gritty and da-da-da. It's like, okay, but 5 minutes ago you wanted to fire his butt too. So it's selective amnesia. It's getting hot at the right time. It's just a lot of things, man. It's just a lot of things. But anyway, that's all I got to say about that.
Chris Garcia with an what will be their narrative, or what will their narrative be if Miami beats them? Jay Harrelson says Mario Cristobal Saban's greatest assistant ever. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put it past them. I would not put it past that narrative to be one. At least with Miami winning, it's the Ohio State thing. They bought a $30 million roster. That's why they won. It's better than saying it's all coaching. Kirby has fallen. I'm just over this. That's the thing. Like we will talk about and we've already talked about in the Peach State Power about what's the best way of building a roster these days in college football. What's the best way of building a national championship roster? And I think we've made ourselves clear. I think Georgia's doing it the right way because it's the way majority of these programs are building their roster, investing in high school recruiting, bringing in as many top recruiting, high school players as possible, and then supplementing your roster through the portal. And that's been the way for the last however many years. It's been that. Obviously, with the portal now, the portal's more involved the last few years. But I don't think you're going to see a all gas and no brakes approach to, hey, we're not even going to really focus on high school recruiting because we're just going to wait and go for the portal. Because for all we know, until we see it over a longer time span, this may just be one of those things where Indiana's done an incredible job and they have an incredible group of players, and they're not going to be able to retain that success, be able to do it at the same level. It's the same reason, the same thing we can talk about how Georgia had that incredible 2021 roster and incredible roster in 2022. They were able to retain all that talent, and it's just going to be some of those teams where you just can't replicate it because it's so much in a different era now. Maybe not drastically, but it's so different that it's going to be so hard to maintain. But we will save that topic for another time in terms of building rosters. I think we both maintain that I think they're doing it the right way, and we'll see how that kind of evolves as the year goes on, as years go by. Now, let's hit the question, Dan, that everyone's been asking. What's up with the headline? What's up with the title? It's not clickbait, I promise you. Although we would love to have you click on the video and watch us, give us a chance. We appreciate y'all for being here. Over 1,000 live viewers right now. Really appreciate y'all for being here. How did Georgia avoid disaster? Well, if you've been following along over the last weekend, there were significant rumors about the status of Georgia running backs Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bowens. As we all know now, those two did not enter the portal, but I believe it was Saturday night. I looked down at my phone and checked the event, and Roddy, Dash, all had put updates on there about the status of Nate Frazier. There were several reports. I believe Rusty Manziel over with Dogs HQ first said something over there about what he had been hearing about Nate Frazier. Several questions have been asked about him as he had yet to sign a deal with Georgia to remain in 2026. Roddy then went on the vent and gave his side of the things in terms of what his sources were telling him. And I believe that was at the time that they had both not signed a new contract, but Frazier was enrolled for the spring semester and summer courses, and right then and there, there's no deal. We're monitoring it. A few days earlier, Roddy had reported about a source mentioning to him Chauncey Bowens as somebody who had potentially had been eyeing an opportunity in the portal. Obviously, just an hour after he put that up, that was at 7:45 p.m. Saturday evening. Just an hour later, he spoke with somebody who said that they felt pretty confident that both would be back at Georgia. Then come Monday, both confirm on social media they are back in Athens. And the reason we're talking about this is it's a big deal for Georgia, not only on the statistics and football side of things, that these two players who have the potential to be Georgia's 1-2 punch in the backfield this coming season are back. But Dan, I think more than ever, this is a proof of concept for that program in terms of they've said for years that they are not going to go out here and pay millions and millions of dollars for high school talent. They're going to recruit high school talent, but you're not going to make a huge payday at Georgia, off of Georgia at high school, straight out of high school. They want to pay for proven production, and they want you to come in there and prove yourself before they give you a massive payday. Now, I don't have the numbers for either of these two players, but I'm certain they're both making good money at Georgia. I'm certain everybody who signs with Georgia, who has an NIL agreement, is probably making good money. But this is a proof of concept that if you come here and you prove yourself, you're going to be rewarded. And after we had seen the way things had gone with Damon Wilson, who obviously up and down on Georgia last offseason. You saw a guy like A.D. Mitchell, who Texas fans said that wasn't for money. I know he had a kid over there in Houston, and I'm sure that played a factor in his decision to make it. But it's a proof of concept to Georgia that, hey, we're not willing to just let anybody walk out the door.
Well, and also the reason it's disaster averted is the portal for running backs is kind of thin. They're the top line running backs that you need at Georgia to be successful. Those guys are not a dime a dozen. They're really not. Like Savion Hitter, the high school kid coming in, is probably one of the most highly recruited running backs in quite a while, that projects to be one of those guys from day one that can go get it, right? And there wasn't a whole handful of those guys this year. Georgia didn't get any of those guys. So to have a guy the quality of Nate Frazier, and I know just through our shows, there are people who didn't like Nate Frazier, which is kind of wild to me. But then also Chauncey Bowens, who's extremely talented too. So if either or both of those guys walked, you're kind of in a rough spot. And I'm not trying to disparage anybody else on the roster, but as far as proven players to that level, it really wasn't one. And if you go back, Georgia hasn't really had that guy who you could just turn around and hand the ball to and he could win the game for you since Chubb left and Michelle, Sony and Nick Chubb. I mean, before him, obviously Todd Gurley, but and DeAndre Swift did a great job too while he was here, but it's not really been that high-end running back for Georgia. So Nate Frazier, the second half of the season, whenever he got back into the rotation and back in the good graces, he really, really did a great job. And, I know that people still feel some kind of way about him because he fumbled one ball obviously he fumbled a couple times, but there's the one play that people just really hang on to and won't grow up from. Man, that game against Ole Miss in the playoffs, he was running like a man on fire. Now, that was my biggest complaint about that game, is that, like, I really would have just handed it to him on every damn play. I mean, he was absolutely on fire, and we kind of went away from it. But having that guy come back healthy for a full year, and then having Chauncey Bowens to be the co-running back with him, and I'm sure that we're going to see a heavier workload for Chauncey this year. And I know that there are some other guys on the roster, but Phillips is one of the guys that people are high on, and I'm drawing blanks, but Cash is gone, so that's not going to be. And I'm sure there's probably a lot of people got really excited about that, but it's just disaster averted because running back market was kind of thin, and you'd have to overpay for a guy that maybe you weren't exactly stoked about. So by keeping somebody in house that you do know about, I think that's the bigger takeaway, right? Is that you have a known quantity now at running back. Both of them are here. They seem to be happy. And you don't have to go try to find somebody else, right? You can now use the portal to go supplement your roster in other spots. And I think they've done a pretty decent job of that already. Isaiah Canyon coming in here is a really big thing for me. And I know the kid from Vanderbilt. Did we ever find out what he's doing?
He's gone to Louisville.
Oh, well, damn it, boy. Really? Really?
Hey, Louisville got that NIL money,
Go have fun.
The agent told me got some aggressive players in this one, So agent talk 101. Jay Harrelson, if we would have lost Nate or Bowens, we would have taken a huge step back. Losing both would have been cooked. Maybe not even top 10 next year. Yeah, I mean, those are two guys that you don't want to lose. I mean, those are two of Georgia's best returning offensive players on the roster, like Dan said. And obviously you bring in Jay Lamar as a freshman, but it's been a little bit since Georgia relied on a true freshman running back to take that amount of carries, to take the workload that both Frazier, especially Frazier in this case, had. Obviously, Frazier had a workload as a freshman. I remember that Clemson game was obviously, a lot of people felt, man, this is the start of something special. So you don't want to have to put yourself in that position. Now, there's always the rare case where you have a true freshman running back, i.e. Todd Gurley, who just comes in and immediately is the guy. But to Dan's point, that didn't happen. Neither of these guys have gone into the portal, and it's a huge deal for Georgia to have those guys back because they were already in a spot depth-wise in that room. They're going to have to replace Cash Jones. They're going to have to replace Josh McCray. Like, you're already down 2 bodies in that room, and it was already making sense why they were going to look at the portal to go add a running back. And if you put 1 or 2 more guys, unexpected departures in there, you're looking at another one that you're going to have to add to that room numbers wise. So, which is a nice, perfect segue, Dan, because not even like I think a day later, maybe the same day, I think it's the next day, Georgia gets the long awaited running back transfer, Dante Dowdle, who is if I remember correctly, he is related to Rico Dowdle, the running back for the Panthers, if I remember correctly. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Don't quote me on that. I'm actually going to look that up. I thought I remember somebody telling me that, but I might be wrong because now that I think about it, I think they spell their last name differently. So that means they can't be related. So never mind. Scratch that. Buzz. You get Dante Dowdle, who I know caught some flack with, obviously this is his 3rd school, or actually 4th school. He played at Oregon as a freshman, went to Nebraska, then went to Kentucky. Now he's at Georgia. One of those cases that he's played at several schools, but he has been productive. And I don't think a lot of people were asking when we were first talking about this over in UGASports that Georgia was looking at him and Georgia was in on him. They were wondering, hey, what's this mean for Bowens, who at the time there had been the report about the portal? Nothing. Georgia wanted this guy regardless of Bowens' status because they needed that body in the room. They needed that extra experience. The way I put it one time in an article was Georgia's not looking for they will take him. Obviously, don't get me wrong. They're not looking to go get a Trevor Etienne type buy who you're going to bring in and you're say, we need 100 carries out of you. They were more so, in my opinion, looking for a Josh McCray. Hey, we may just only need 50 carries from you, but we need a couple snaps from you a game. We just need you to contribute. We don't need you to be an every down player. And I think that's exactly what they're getting in Dante Dowdle. He brings similar frame as Josh McCray. I don't know if he's as powerful as a runner as Josh McCray, but an experienced buy here, Dan. And it's weird to say that, but that's what the portal is these days. You're buying players, which I hate saying that because it sounds bad, but you add depth to a room that you needed it.
There's the Branson Robinson comment. Look, the best ability is availability, and that was his downfall. It wasn't a talent thing with either one of the Robinsons. It was just availability. They're always hurt, and it's unfortunate, but you just can't count on guys who are always hurt. And I did see the comment about DeAndre Swift, and I didn't mean to downplay DeAndre Swift. He's a dog. Like, I get it. Like, yeah, and he is having a hell of a run with the Bears. So, wasn't throwing shade at Swift. But you're right.
I still can't get over those images of his dad just absolutely jacked up in the stands. That was the craziest time.
I can't get over the people who wanted to talk shit to him online. Like, really? Like, you're so – yeah, all right, never mind. That's neither here nor there. But
he squeezed your –
you're 100% right. Like, it is buying players, but you have to be smart about it. And I think that's the biggest takeaway that I've gotten from watching these teams have success in the playoffs and teams that don't have success or can't even make it to the playoffs is you can spend a lot of money on your roster. But if you don't spend it in the right spots, then
you're shit out of luck, as Nick Saban said.
Shit out of luck, sure. You'd be hard pressed to find a better buy in the portal this year. Obviously Fernando Mendoza is number one, right? I mean, we get that. Like, it's the guy wins the Heisman Trophy, has a banner year, so that's clearly number one. But if you're going to find a close second, Zachariah Branch. I'm sorry, he doesn't like Zach, but Zachariah Branch. I mean, that guy was everything and more you could have possibly hoped for. And if you remember, before the season started, there was a lot of people who said he's not really a receiver. He's more of just a gadget guy who's a returner. And that's where he's going to make the biggest impact. Look, there were people who get paid a lot of money to talk about Georgia, specifically Georgia. And I'm not going to name their names, but they get paid a lot of money to talk about Georgia, who are like the number one way he's going to affect this Georgia team is in the return game. Brother, he was our best wide receiver, and it wasn't close. That was what we were hoping for, and that's what we got. I think that is the best money spent Georgia has had. And if we could find somebody to replicate that type of production, I think it's going to be very, very hard pressed. But, man, what do you got? Why are you laughing?
No, this comment was fun. I forgot about that. At one point, we had Swift's dad in the stands, and then Evander Holyfield.
Yeah, talk shit to him one time.
Jermaine King. Shout out Jermaine King. I'm sorry for derailing that. That popped up. I was like, I have to acknowledge that one.
No. Hey, listen, I'll tell you this much right now. If you think, and I don't care how big they are size-wise, if you think you can mess with a professional boxer, their hands are so friggin' fast. We met Vernon Forrest, who was a fighter, and his hands were so fast. Like they literally can hit you 3 times before you could blink. It's so fast. Like, dude, I'm sorry. I know we just got derailed by Jermaine's comments, but bro, if you think you can mess with a boxer in a straight up fight, like you're an idiot.
You got to pay me a lot of money even to just take a
punch. No, you can't pay me. Guys. No, because those guys will put you in a coma. Like you're not used to getting hit like that. No, no. We have been completely derailed now. We're talking about boxers putting us in a coma. No, you're right, Jermaine. Like, bro, we had a total badass in the stands. We did.
That's an insane time to look at that room because at one point you had Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, Evander Holyfield, and DeAndre Swift in that room. And there's probably another. Brian Herring was in that room, I believe, for 1 year. Mm-hmm. And I know Brian Herring's not in the same breath as those guys ahead of him, but was still a good player for Georgia. Anyways, Dante Dowdle, I think, like the objective fan said, solid add to the room. He's been productive where he's been. He's going to come here and he's going to get some carries, and that's what Georgia needs. You need to have some carries. Next one, last edition of the week, and now Elijah's a WWE wrestler. Yeah,
is he really?
Maybe Dan. I guess so. Hey, would you take a punch from him? I guess. I mean, I don't believe their punches are in.
Bro, I'm 46. I'm not getting punched by anybody right now.
Oh no! I think I know who this is. If this is who I think it is, shout out to you, brother. I saw you in New Orleans. Is this who I think it is? I'm not sure. Let me know. I think that's Robert Peel, but I'm not sure. Let me know, Robert, if that's you. If not, Mike, appreciate you for being here and joining us. Keith Bradshaw, appreciate you. Only Objective Sports Fan, Jay Harrelson, appreciate y'all. Comments have been awesome tonight. Last edition of the week, Gentry Williams. And people are going to look at the stat sheet here, Dan, and I can't say anything against him. He's played in 22 games as a freshman and sophomore. I believe that was 21 and 22. 22 and 23 was his freshman sophomore year. Played in 22 games, then suffered an injury in 2024. Got hurt again, I believe, this year. Played in 6 games. He's experienced, but he's had injury issues. And now he comes to Georgia in a defensive backfield that is going to be young again in terms of it's gotten older. Like Ellis Robinson and DeMello Jones are your 2 headliners at corner right now, as projected. And they've got a full year under their belts. But you still want guys behind them. You still want guys to compete for them. And I believe this is one of those guys they're bringing in to do that. Obviously, Braylon Conley from USC is another one. I know his PFF grades weren't great. Or I believe it was his PFF grades, or maybe no. Someone pointed out his ratings on the college football game as being in the 60s. I'm like, guys, I get it. We need some frame of reference here, but let's see him come to campus and let him play before we judge him.
He would have familiarity with our DB coach as well. When we got
I believe, depending on how old he is, which I don't remember if he's a freshman, if he's a rising sophomore or not. If he's a rising sophomore, ain't no way.
Yeah, but he would have been recruited regardless.
Yes, correct.
Because I'm just saying there's probably some familiar. Yeah, I can't say it. You got it. You know what I'm trying
familiarity?
To say.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It is Robert. Okay, there's only one guy that makes that comment. Appreciate you, Robert, for being here. Yeah, Gentry Williams from OU. We'll wait and see. I'm curious to see where he factors in this. He could play corner. He could play star. He could play safety at Georgia. We'll know when he gets here. Obviously, I think it's apparent to me that Georgia has identified the issue this past season. They weren't good enough in the secondary, and they're addressing it. They have several names that they've brought in through the portal to try and address the issue. Khalil Barnes being one of them. Jamarly Riddle. I'm gonna have to get that first name pronunciation, Dan. That one's gonna get me. Braylon Conley and now Gentry Williams are all additions to the secondary. Overall, Dan, and I know it's not completely done. Overall, I don't know if this is the sexiest portal class Georgia's ever had, but it's apparent that they've done some self-scouting and they know where their holes are just by where they've added position-wise.
And I think sometimes one of the things that's completely overlooked now in this new market is sometimes your biggest additions are the ones you didn't lose. I mean, if you look at Georgia's roster, yes, we had some portal additions where, we brought some guys in, but look at the guys that were going out. Like, other than like Bo Hewley, like, is there really anybody headed out that you're really upset with? I know you are with the Dominic Kelly, you think that's a huge loss, but I mean, we're not losing starters really, except for Janelle Aguero.
And that's the title, like they've avoided disaster, obviously, on the Frazier and Bowens front, but also your biggest loss is Janelle Aguero in terms of experience. But Georgia feels just fine, I believe, in terms of racial.
They kind of replaced him.
Yeah.
I mean, he was already losing snaps while he was here, and now you bring in Barnes, who I think is going to start right away. I mean,
at safety,
I think you would be safe to make that assumption, but you're right. I think the roster management in this year, I mean, obviously there's one day left and something could happen. Knock on wood that it does not. But I think this year's roster management has been pretty good, pretty solid. And I don't know, and I don't spend so much time in the portal looking through players and all that stuff, but I don't really know if there was, other than Cam Coleman, I don't know that there was really a player who is just heads and tails above everybody else, like where they're just incredible. Like I mean, if you want to come at me and say that Cam Coleman's not a great receiver, I think you're being silly, and I think you're just trying to have an argument. I think Cam Coleman is extremely talented, and I think every team in the country would have been happy to have him. Right? I mean, is that fair to say? Now, maybe not every team in the country wants to pay that price tag. That's a completely different conversation. But talent-wise, he's that guy. I don't know who else in the portal this year was that like that. I know there's a couple quarterbacks that were floating around, but I'm not really. Levitt was one of them that was highly talked about.
Not exactly, yeah. As you were about to say, Georgia's not exactly in the market there.
Right. So, I mean, out of all the players that were available, other than Cam Coleman, name me one that you would have really liked to have. Now, listen, there is one, and he's not committed anywhere, and I don't know where he's going to go, but the left tackle from Colorado. Who
Seaton.
Is a first-round pick. He is a plug-and-play, one-year starter at left tackle, and he is going to be a first-round pick. And he just is. And then the second-best tackle committed to South Carolina, right? For the NC State kid,
yep.
Didn't he go to
Jacarius Peak?
Yeah, so he was the other one. He'll be the left tackle for South Carolina. And it was kind of funny. I was listening to 680 The Fan the other day, and Chuck Oliver was talking about what a coup for South Carolina would be is if you were able to get both of those tackles to bookend your offensive line. You'd have the best two tackles in the country, possibly. Yeah, but the kid from Colorado is Jordan Seaton. Is that his name, the kid from Colorado?
Yep. Okay. IMG Georgia offered, but out of high school, I should say. But that price tag.
With Monroe Freeling going into the draft, I don't know how much money Georgia has left in the coffers, but that would be a phone call that I would make. A plug-and-play left tackle, first-round pick. I would be interested in that. I don't know what the negative to that would be. I don't know would he be blocking anybody that we're really high on? I mean, you know the offensive line rotation better than I do. I know we have some really good, talented guys in the room. I know that we're not devoid of talent. But I think
That's the one like remaining question about Georgia's portal class is if they go grab and tackle now. Like that's kind of like the one spot.
So what's the
where you're
price
like-
tag on a guy like that? 5 million, 4 million, 3 million? What is it? I have no idea. 3 million?
Right now on 3 list, this is public. I don't want to put out the actual answer.
Thank you. Only.
Behind it. Yeah. On 3 has it as 1.7. His NIL valuation at 1.7 million. Okay. I didn't say it, but yeah. 2.5 million to begin with. So I don't suspect Georgia will pay that. Should they? You can make a strong argument. But I don't think we expect Jordan Seaton to end up in Athens.
No, I'm not saying that we will. I'm just saying, like, of all the players left in the portal, that's probably the only one that I would throw the bank at, or back the truck up for.
Yeah, I was just looking at this. You're talking about who's in the portal that you like, you would love to have if you're Georgia right now, and Cam Coleman obviously is one of those guys. I don't know much about him, but he's highly ranked. Chaz Coleman, the edge rusher from Penn State, given Georgia's need there. Like, you could make an argument that's a guy you would love to have. And here's the next guy. And this, as far as I know, this is not going to happen. In a realistic world, it's not happening. But if things were different and they were approachable, Damon Wilson would be a guy that you would love to have on your roster right now after the year he had at Missouri. But there's a huge lawsuit in all that, as I think someone talked about in the comments earlier, that is preventing that from happening. We don't expect him to show up in Athens anytime soon unless he's playing Georgia. But, yeah, real quick, before we wrap it up, I think, as we were just talking about, long-winded, it's been a strong portal for Georgia in terms of filling needs. You filled some spots, and you really avoided huge losses. Jonell Guerrero has been the biggest in terms of experience, but it looks like Georgia has options at star. They're not devoid of talent there. It's not, to me, Jonell Guerrero is not a Damon Wilson level of departure where it's unexpected, it's out of nowhere, and you're not really prepared for it. I think Georgia has options. Georgia knows what it's doing at star. The one that's surprising to me, and you alluded to it earlier, is Dom Kelly, the former four-star IMG Academy corner, true freshman. I know people will laugh at it, but obviously he's not a proven production guy for Georgia at the moment, so it doesn't hurt there. Your corner room is still strong. It just hurts that he looks like a guy that if he had waited another year or two, he was going to be getting on the field and could turn into a star player. I think this very well could be an A.J. Harris situation where a guy leaves your room early and goes on to have a good career elsewhere. And it's exactly what happened with A.J. Harris. So I'm curious to see. I'm not quite sure what the deal is there, if Georgia's working to get him back, if they can try and get him back. But he would bring good depth and experience, or not experience, but competition to that room. Somebody who flashed as early as the spring game last year. I think he had a pick in that game, had a couple pass breaks-ups. Like, as a true freshman, flashed in the spring game, and then had a couple flashes when he got on the field this year as a freshman. Last comment, then we'll wrap it up, Dan. The only UGASports fan, I'm not going to lie, losing Monroe is a big loss to me. Not insurmountable, but bringing him back would have the team at a different level. Yeah, I think you have a valid point, kind of to Dan's point. You don't really have a known replacement for him at left tackle right now. Like, you don't have a Broderick Jones or a Merrick Mims just sitting in the wing. So there's going to be some reshuffling. And that's something we'll dive into when we start portal, like spring practice previews, is trying to guess what the offensive line will be. Because right now your question is, where's Ernest Green play? Does Ernest Green stay at right tackle, or do you move him to left tackle? My personal preference, given the injury history, is to keep him right tackle. So it doesn't, if he does have an injury, it doesn't derail your entire line like losing your left tackle would. And maybe you think about kicking Gaston out to left tackle. But we'll see. We got a whole spring to get through. We got a lot of content, folks. That's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of the Top to Top podcast. Catch us on Wednesdays going forward at 7:30, unless otherwise stated. Hope to have some news in terms of a guest for next week. Not going to announce it now, but that's in the works. Maybe we'll have Koby back for that. We'll see. Congratulations again to our friend Mr. Koby Pyrz, Mr. and Mrs. Koby Pyrz on the kid. That's Dan Kiley. I'm Harrison Reno. This is the Top Talk podcast. We'll see you next week, folks.
Go Dogs.